Ernest Hemingway is quoted as saying, "There is no friend as loyal as a book." And I find that fascinating because I love books. They provide me with hours of entertainment and comfort, and I love being surrounded by them. And you know, as strange as this may sound, I actually feel like I have many friends with all of the literary characters I've met over the years. And some of them I revisit quite often. Today, I am going to talk about my evolution as a reader by answering some questions for the Evolution of a Reader tag. Hi, I'm Kat. Welcome back to Kat's Novel Adventures. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with this tag. First of all, I want to thank Gloria. Her channel is Gloria McNeely. She tagged me. And the original tag was created by Spread Book Joy. So the first question is what you read. How has your taste in books evolved? Well, you know, as a youngster, I read, picture books and whatever books, were in the library, mostly gravitating towards animal type of books like Winnie the Pooh, Beatrix Potter. Later, in elementary school, I would choose books that tend to have like quirky characters, like Caroline or Little Dumpling Fish from The Mysterious Disappearance of Noel, which is an Ellen Raskin book, or Harriet from Harriet the Spy. And then I also loved reading Nancy Drew mysteries. Those were a lot of fun. Then, as time went on, I discovered Judy Blume and some Beverly Cleary. And then in junior high is when I probably discovered my first horror type books, which Lois Duncan, love Lois Duncan. She's the author of I Know What You Did Last Summer. I had my introduction to Edgar Allan Poe in the 8th grade, as well as Stephen King. And then I graduated and went to high school and was exposed to a lot of classical literature, which I loved. I love like Thomas Hardy, Charles Dickens, Shakespeare, got more Edgar Allan Poe, had Nathaniel Hawthorne, and also discovered some other authors like V.C. Andrews. I remember my friend Shelley and I, sharing those books. She would read the first one, and when she's finished, she passed it to me. And then, we would like voracious readers when it came to that stuff. And then as I graduated from high school and went into college, that's when I discovered Mary Higgins Clark. And so I was reading a lot more mysteries. And in college, of course, you're reading more really great literature, some classics, more Shakespeare, introduced to some more modern writers. And also, that is where I discovered some more horror writers, Clive Barker, Anne Rice, read some more Stephen King. And then my taste in literature changed again because I was introduced to John Grisham, Michael Crichton, James Patterson. Then I went back to school to get my teaching certificate, and I was immersed in children's literature again. At that point, and when I started teaching and worked in the library for 4 years, in my educational journey, I really rediscovered my love for children's literature. Read a lot of middle grade and junior high. I wanted to encourage my students to read. And they would come in and they would tell me sometimes, I don't, like reading, or the library doesn't have anything. So I would, read a lot of the books and then make recommendations. And so I, got a lot of people back into reading, a lot of my students back into reading. In fact, I had one student who told me that I'm a hunter, not a reader. And I said, well, you know what? You can be a hunter and a reader at the same time. And I introduced him to Gary Paulson, and his first book was The Rifle. He read it, he loved it, he brought it back, and he's like, do you have anything that's like this? And so then I gave him the Mr. Tucker series by Gary Paulson, and he loved that. And then after he read those, he was like, I want to read something kind of like that, but not exactly like that. So I introduced him to Gordon Corman, and he went from there. And the thing about it is, I left that school to go to another school, and when I made my announcement that I was going to be leaving, he was like, I'm not going to ever read anything again. And I said, don't be like that. I'm like, you know what you like to read, you know what you're interested in. I said, so just gravitate towards books that you're interested in. Really and truly, I think just as the decades go on, I just start adding different genres, to my collection. And I probably late 30s, getting close to my 40s, I started gravitating more to like personal development, and wanting to read books about spirituality, reading more about other people's lives and what they have accomplished, with memoirs or biographies. As I got into acting, I wanted to read books about acting and about improv. I like to learn, and if I can find a book about something I like learning about, you better believe I'm going to go and get that book. I really have added a lot of different genres to, my collection. And really and truly, it's recently that I've discovered a lot of new horror writers because, really my horror writers that I love were mainly like Stephen King, and then reading Joe Hill, Clive Barker, Anne Rice, I would say Neil Gaiman teeters depending on the type of book. Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child, they're kind of like on that, borderline between like maybe supernatural, fantasy, horror. And so it wasn't really until I reconnected with Kelsi over at Simon Slashers that I started discovering some more horror, writers. And we also created a book club called Chills, Thrills, and Kills, and it is mainly reading horror writers. We also do science fiction as well as thrillers. If you look at my evolution as a whole, I have just broadened the type of reading that I do. I pretty much like anything that I find interesting. And while I may gravitate more to like thrillers, mystery, horror, I also like a good realistic fiction story. I like a good fantasy story. So it just depends. It depends. I do discover new authors from friends of mine. Sometimes I discover new authors from book recommendations from other authors that I follow. And I just think it's fun to discover new types of books or genres that you might be interested in. Really, the only thing I don't really care to read would be romance. So that's it. I mean, I'm basically love to read pretty much anything. I'm willing to give anything a chance, let's put it that way. And it could be something, like Wind in the Willows. It could be A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, or it could be Christine by Stephen King. Well, I really feel like I was like rambling on and on and on with that first question, so hopefully I won't be as long-winded with the next one. The second question is how you read. Has the format of your reading changed much? And I can say no, because I prefer to read a hardback book or a paperback book. I also love reading magazines and comic books, believe it or not. So Yeah, my format has not really changed much because I'm just used to reading books and I love them. And like I said, I like that physical copy. Number 3, how much you read. Do you read more or less than previously? So this is like a 3-part question. So the first, do I read more or less than previously? I have moments of time when I read a great deal, and then there's times when I don't read nearly as much. The one thing I will say is that I do read something every single day. The amount differs. I would have to say my reading is like peaks and valleys because it really depends on what's going on in my life. You know, back in college, I didn't read a lot of books for pleasure because I was reading whatever I had to read in my classes. Now, I would read a great deal during like the summer or the breaks to make up for that. But there have been times where, you know, I'm lucky if I was able to read, I don't know, maybe 10 to 15 books in a year. The last few years, I would say my goals on Goodreads has been to read at least 50 books. Now this year has been a stellar year. This has been an abnormal year, and I really do think it's because I'm participating more in readathons on Booktube, and I'm doing more projects with my friend Kelsi over at Slime and Slashers. Now the second question is, when do you read? Well, my answer to that is I read whenever I can squeeze it in. An ideal day when I don't have anywhere to rush off to in the morning is I like to try to make myself a cup of coffee and either, you know, sit on the sofa or in my bed and read for about 30 minutes or so. And then if I do have some blocks of time within my day, I would read. I know when I work, a lot of times I would read during my lunch break just so I could have some extra time to read. And when I was teaching classes, we had a period of time at the beginning of our reading classes or literature classes and designated for accelerated reader, and I would read the 15 minutes that my students were reading just so I could have some extra time for reading. And then I do love to end my day reading. Now the drawback with that is, depending on how tired I am when I get to that point, will depend on how productive I am. Sometimes I can read a couple of chapters before I go to bed. Sometimes I'm like falling asleep within the first couple of pages. And it's not because the book is not interesting, it's just that I'm beat by that point. The third part to that question is, has how often you read changed? And yes, I would say yes. How often? Because again, it just depends on life. The last question is, how has Booktube changed you as a reader? Well, it definitely has changed me because I think it has really propelled the amount that I'm reading now. I mean, this year I'm like already at 70 books, and I think by the end of the year it'll be close to 75. I mean, that is phenomenal because the past few years my reading goal has been 50 books, and I am literally, you know, December 31st and I'm still reading my last book to make my goal. I find that I am discovering new authors, new titles, reading a little bit differently so that I can talk about these books with other, you know, wonderful readers in the Booktube community. And I like having a plan. And so that's why I think, you know, having like readathons pop up is really beneficial because you have something you could look forward to, try to find books that you already own that would fit the prompts, or, you know, have an excuse to go out and buy some new books. Now, I will say, even though it has influenced me in many good ways, I have to be very careful not to compare myself to other booktubers, because there are booktubers out there that are reading, tons more than I am and are reading a lot faster. I am not as fast of a reader as I used to be back in the day by any stretch of the imagination. So it does take me a little longer to read books. And then of course, you have other things going on in your life. You got to try to fit it in when you can. So I have to take Mel Robbins' advice because she says that we should not swim in the toilet of comparison. So I have to cut myself some slack because even though I love doing a readathon, I have to tell myself, you know what, if you don't get to all the prompts, you don't get to all the prompts. Or, you know what, choose a book that might cover a couple of the prompts and double dip, triple dip, quadruple dip, whatever. I don't feel like I'm under so much pressure to finish a readathon. So I do like having a plan, but at the same time, I like to be able to not be under the pressure to complete a plan. Let's put it that way. I mean, with that being said, I was extremely proud of myself that I did get blackout for my L.M. Montgomery challenge. So I'm just gonna pat myself on the back for that one. I'm supposed to tag some people to complete this tag. What I'm gonna do is pretty much tag everyone out there. But if you haven't answered this one, Kelsi, I'm going to tag you. And also Mitzi, if you haven't done it as well, please do that. And how about you, Andrew? You go ahead and complete this tag as well if you haven't been tagged already. But otherwise, it's pretty much open to everybody. So that's all I have for you today. You know what to do. Stay amazing and be adventurous.